Hi, we're live from the Newberry Library, which is, as we all know, all closed for temporarily, but we wanted to give you one last look at Renaissance Invention, this wonderful exhibition that my co-curator Leah Markey and I have put together. And because even though you'll be able to come and see the books again in the future, you won't be able to see them together with all these other objects. So we really wanted to give you a chance to look at it. So we're going to turn it around here.
Thanks, Suzanne, and welcome everybody on Facebook and YouTube to the Newberry Library. We're excited to show you the exhibition today. Note that you can put questions in both Facebook and YouTube, and we will try to answer them as they come in. So as Suzanne is entering the gallery, I'll just briefly introduce you to the exhibition. The exhibition is essentially asking what was new in the Renaissance, in order to also make us question today what is new in our current world. The focus of the show is on a set of engravings called the Nova Reperta, which were designed in Florence and engraved in Antwerp in the late 16th century. So Suzanne's now panning over to the wall where you see the first 10 engravings in the series. And there's the frontispiece, which is the first image of the series, which shows this set of 10 inventions, which are evocative of the period. And you see the title there, Nova Reperta, which just means new discoveries. And so the whole exhibition is really inspired by these images, which are celebrating novelty and innovation. And our goal in the exhibition was to truly bring these images to life through the display of objects that are represented in the images and that will tell us about innovation in the period. So these are, in some cases, loans from other institutions, in some cases, objects in our own collection at the Newberry.
So I wanted to take you to two of the objects in the exhibition that sort of bring these together. So you can see this model cannon from the Art Institute, French, just about the same time as the prints, late 16th, early 17th century. And we have it positioned here right in front of the Gutenberg Bible page, which is also an important part of the frontispiece in the history of printing. And as you were able to see from the frontispiece, the cannon standing in for gunpowder is aiming at printing. And given the way that the exhibition is sort of unpacking a number of assumptions made about invention in this period, we wanted to show these together because book printing was not really invented in Europe in the 16th century or 15th century when Gutenberg was active, but in Asia much earlier, and as so was gunpowder in the 9th century. So we wanted to think a little bit about how these inventions were improved upon, perhaps in some ways with new kinds of presses, new kinds of casting techniques and so forth, but not really made entirely anew. I'm coming over here to one of our cases with a new acquisition we made just for the exhibition. Engraving is another form of printmaking. It's in the second half of the prints. And we can see in this case, this saint in this 17th century book, and the print and the plate, the copper plate, the exact copper plate that it was printed from. And we did not have these two together until the exhibition. And we were able to work with a dealer in Germany to bring them together. And we have a modern engraving tool, Buren here with it. And this is to show how you would use a literal piece of metal and a sharp tool like this to gouge out the lines that would have made the images in the Nova Reperta series. And while there were many lists at the time of innovations, and lots of thinkers, including in the academy that the artist Johannes Stradanus, his patron, was in, but none of the other ones actually used engravings in such extreme detail to show the innovations. So we wanted to really think about how these objects were made and when these techniques were developed.
Thanks, Suzanne.
So we're going to move into the second gallery.
Yeah, and as Suzanne's moving into the gallery, I'll remind you that if you're just joining us, that this is a virtual tour of an exhibition at the Newberry called Renaissance Invention. Johannes is Nova Reperta, and she's now entering the second room of the exhibition, and you can see it's divided into three parts. Essentially, the first part of the room is exploring navigation and colonization in relationship to the engravings. The second part deals with warfare and machines, and the third, the transformation of substances. And as I mentioned earlier, the focus on this brief tour is to show you some of the things that are on display in relationship with the engravings. Here she's showing you the other 10 prints in the series, which were designed by Johannes Stradamus in Florence and then printed in Antwerp. And you can see the variety of technological innovation on display, from windmills to water mills, armor polishing, the Astrolabe. And so our goal in the show was to demonstrate the workings of some of these items that are highlighted in the engravings. So here we have a case of objects from the Adler Planetarium that we have on loan. We were thrilled to collaborate with them on this. You see an Astrolabe there on your left, which was actually found in the shipwreck of the Atocha. It dates from about 1620. In the middle of the case, there's a lodestone, and then you have an armillary sphere. And all of these are featured in the engravings. And by showing the objects, we really wanted you to get a sense of their dimension, the dimensionality of these things and how they function. And Suzanne's traveling through the space over to some of the books to see how the books are in dialogue with the objects. So here you see in this case, this is an atlas, a Ptolemaic atlas, which was produced in Germany in 1540. And you can see, even though people are traveling the world, there's not accuracy quite represented here in this image of the Americas. But this is an incredible volume, which is colored from the period. It also includes a little bit of gold, a little bit of gilding in it as well, highlighted in gold. And you see a ship there at the left. If you can zoom in further, you can see even little cannibals represented in Brazil, which was a common trope from the period, this sense of not knowing who was living in these places. This idea that there were foreigners, monsters, cannibals in these new unknown lands. So as Suzanne
let's move over to the armor. We looked briefly at the armor polishing plate a bit ago, but this is really, I don't know, what sort of the Fiesta Resistance in a way in the exhibition, because that print from Stradamus is the only one that has from this period that shows how you polished armor, and you would do it to deflect blows and have bullets glance off a little bit more. And it really was a functional element of this. And we didn't want to show a full suit, because that's not how you polish armor. You can't possibly get in all the nooks and crannies that way. So like the piles of armor in the print, we wanted to show the inner and outer parts of this. So that's why this part here, the gauntlet is upside down. So you can get a sense. You can see some of the hatching marks from former polishing on the armor here as well. Oops, sorry about that. So, and then there's the stirrups over there.
Suzanne, we have a question from the audience from Jeffrey on Facebook,
sure.
who asks us, what was an Astrolabe used for?
It depends on the type of Astrolabe. The ones we have in the exhibition are mariners' Astrolabes. So I'll go back to it for a second.
Yeah.
And it was used for navigation on a ship, and the fact that they were very very prominently used is attested by the fact that I think about half of the ones that survive now are actually found in shipwrecks. This one, I think, was in use probably for almost a decade before it did sink. It was on a treasure galleon that was Spanish, and the curator at the Adler, who has kindly loaned this to us, has pointed out that the instrument was Portuguese, though. So I think it's probably the Spanish navigators that couldn't work with it. But yeah, so this is really, I mean, you can still read the markings on it. And if you look at on our website, we have a little video with Pedro showing you how you would use the sun's rays through the little hole in the side there to help calculate your location. Yep.
Yeah, we invite you to check out our digital resources related to the exhibition, where you can watch the video where Pedro explains in great detail about the function.
Yep. All right. To finish off with the mechanics, here's the last item from the Adler is this wonderful iron clock, and we liked it because it has internal workings slightly visible, and because of the way that the whole series talks about collaboration, we wanted to be able to show the gears a little bit, and the print in the series in the first room shows a little bit of that. But it's really just a beautiful piece of Augsburg German workmanship. Well, you can see the reflection here.
And this was an innovative object because it was beginning of portability of the clock and a new conception of time in this period.
Yeah. So, and then for a little bit of levity, we had to backfill some objects. These are not 16th century or 15th century glasses, but modern reproductions. But I think the joke about sort of the four-eyed scholar here, unfortunately, remains universal. Here's the Sebastian Brandt Chip of Fools is hanging out there with his feather duster and collecting all these wonderful books, but he doesn't actually read them. So I don't think, in this case, I don't think the glasses are helping. But as we found, this is the only instance, or one of the few instances where the innovations are really modern to post-antique Europe. And in fact, there would be diplomatic missions even into the 17th century from, say, I think the Netherlands, where a basket or a box of lenses would be taken, say, to the Ottoman Empire, sort of as a gift, because it wasn't something that was available. Okay.
And we have a few questions related to warfare here.
Okay.
Jeffrey again is asking, what is special about armor polishing? And this is something we've talked a lot about with Jonathan Tavares. So if you want to respond to that, and then there's another good question about gunpowder.
Okay, I think it was more the speed at which the speed at which the armor was polished, because as we discussed with Jonathan, that it could take as long to polish the armor as to forge it in the first place. So a lot of your labor time went into that. So using sort of a mill-like structure with a sandpaper like paste, you could really speed up, maybe using pack animals or water, you could really speed up the process. So the idea is that it's very functional. You can see a little bit of, there's sort of an opening at the bottom left of the print that could be a stream of water under there. But yeah, you basically, if the sooner you can get your new armor, the sooner you can go to war and be protected. Yep. I hope that answers your question.
And Don asked on Facebook a complicated question. He says he went to the exhibition last week and he was wondering about the discovery of gunpowder in the period and how long did it take for society to make a value judgment about the harm that it would do. That was quite immediate.
Oh, goodness.
There are definitely sources.
I think we're still arguing about that in the US, though.
Yeah, this is true. But I mean, there are sources quite early on. I believe Ariosto talks about gunpowder in the 16th century. It was an immediate reaction to it. So there was conflict about it at the moment. So I think
And go back
Now
over to.
we're highlighting a case here that is focused on the transformation of substances that are dealing with distillation tools right here. Another great colored book. This is a book about sugar, which is another innovation in the print series. And then this other book and the material next to it relate to syphilis, because one of the prints in the series is devoted to the supposed cure for syphilis or treatment for syphilis. And this is an image in the series that is maybe most relevant to our moment today, because syphilis was a pandemic. It was, in this case, a venereal disease, but it affected a great part of the population in the 16th century. There was a lot of confusion about how it was spread initially. And this wood from the New World, from the Caribbean, which is called guaiacum, the plant is called guaiacum, and there was the belief that this plant could, and if you mashed it up and you cooked it in a certain way, that it could be help to cure you of the disease. It actually didn't work, but it helped to treat people with syphilis, and it was better than mercury and other supposed cures of the time. And next to the sample that we have there, we also have a famous book by Fracastoro, who was a Venetian poet, which actually gives the disease its name, syphilis, for the first time. So we have these two together in order to tell this story of this supposed cure and for this disease that was ravaging society at all levels in the 16th century.
But the interesting thing about the poem is that it brings in Columbus.
Yeah, exactly. It does. It brings in Columbus, and it creates it's essentially an epic poem about the disease, and is a metaphor for what's going on in society at the time. So in the image itself, in the print series, depicts an incredibly intimate scene of a patient in his home who's taking the cure, and you get a sense of this relationship between the physician and the patient, and you get a glimpse into everyday life there and at the time when this disease is so prevalent. So I think now we're going to segue over on the other side of the wall, where we have a series of prints devoted to silk production, which is another substance of great importance in the 16th century, particularly in Florence. This is a major industry in Florence. And I know Suzanne is incredibly passionate about these images, so I'll let her speak about it.
Certainly. I'm showing you the frontispiece, which has I like to think, an extremely disgruntled silkworm in the corner, or there are silk moth that's come out of its cocoon, but it goes all the way from eggs to a very hungry silkworm eating mulberry leaves, which is all they would eat, spinning a cocoon, and then, if they were lucky, surviving and not being boiled to be unraveled for silk. So I want to show you, we do have a wonderful specimen over here, which is 3 cocoons nestled on a mulberry leaf, sort of plastic setting with a skein of silk on the top, borrowed from some good friends also at the Art Institute. And we wanted to put it together with these prints because they're showing a more expanded version of the silk print that's in the exhibition earlier in the Stratanus Nova Reperta. This is still Stratanus, but you start to get something almost humorous in their attempt to push this industry on Florentine women. So here you have a bunch of women doing, I guess, the equivalent of a Tupperware party in their well-appointed interior here. It actually says that the only virgins are allowed to keep these eggs warm in their bosom. So they've got over here, yes, it looks a little bit like I Love Lucy and her friend stuffing the chocolates into their blouse when they were coming off of the conveyor line. There's sort of an energy to it. But then you end up with a scene at the end of the series of the prints the silk cocoons being unraveled, being boiled. You can see the fire but this is apparently still fairly similar to natural silk production today. So just to try to think about, what changes and what stays the same. But yeah, we just to think about the way that Jordanes was trying to widen his audience to involve women. In fact, the dedicatee of the series is, and possibly patron, is a woman, the sister of his patron for the Nova Reperta. So so we want to bring it back to the modern day, and to do that, we have a little request. We have a survey that's going to go in the chat, or you should be able to see it on Facebook. But we want you to go in and think about what's important. What are the new inventions that could help us today to make this a better world? Maybe it's not about being one of the Medicis and taking over everything anymore, but it's about how can we help people? How can we get a vaccine that we can trust? What are the things that we're no longer using movable type in the same way, but what is it that does it take to trust what's in social media, what's in print? And these are all issues that we can still discuss. And finally, why is it that they put guaiacum in the series and not rhubarb? Because there are two books, at least in this exhibition, in which the miraculous properties of rhubarb, newly discovered in China, are thought to possibly be the next panacea. So I don't know, maybe we should all have rhubarb pie at Thanksgiving this year, just in case. All right.
That's a good way to conclude, Suzanne. So yeah, we invite you to look at our digital resources and explore the Nova Reperta through them as well. And thank you for coming on this virtual tour and for asking so many great questions. We're sorry we couldn't get to all of them, but we're happy to talk further in the future. Stay well, everyone.